boom, surprise. See, I just pull it. I got to find a smoother way to do that. Hello, hello. Oh, you look kind of like you're in like a well, either a very nice house or like a ski lodge or something. Or
You know what I'm doing is I'm trying to create or envision the world I wish I was in. That's all. I wish I was in a ski lodge. No, so what happened is as I switched my cell phone, and when I switched my cell phone, it logged me out of all of my old Google accounts. And for whatever reason, it messed with my Canvas, it messed with StreamYard, everything. So
there are so many things that can go wrong when you change devices.
yes, it's true. It's true.
I have such a strong, such a powerful urge to change my cell number.
Oh, you're dangerous.
I don't dare. I don't dare. Just too many things are just connected to it. And all those incredible opportunities that people are about to call me up and offer me. I know that the second I change my no, they're not going to be able to find. I'm really hard to find. Ron Coleman is really hard to find, on the internet. So presumably, I'm not going to do it. But
Ron, if I may, would you mind if I signed out for 2 seconds and signed back in to fix this problem real quickly?
I wouldn't mind at all. I can vamp. I can handle this. Okay.
Okay, I'll let you take the lead. Just 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
I don't even know what problem she's talking about, but should we just saying this problem? Not saying this problem, but this problem. There's this problem. Like there's this guy. Anyway, I want to thank all of you who have joined tonight, including those of you who may be coming in from a Valiant stream. It's terrific to have you here. Danny and I we have a few things planned to talk about today. I thought it would be a good idea for us to move the discussion a little bit more towards the legal, since I have pitched this as a law stream. And yes, it's true that we're both lawyers. And by virtue of being lawyers, we're both extraordinarily logical, well-spoken, worldly. And here she is. Speaking of, okay. So the world that you want to exist in is now back outside.
Correct.
But your head's still kind of cut off. Do you know that? At least
I will fix it. Right. I'll fix it.
You can go that. It's not for me to say. I was just saying that you and I did a little bit more prep than before some of our other, episodes of the stream. So perhaps we'll engage people even. But I think it went. I like it. I really like how it went last 2 weeks ago. The previous, even though you were dumb. You were dumb.
I was a little dumb. I said some dumb things. I regret it, but that's all right.
But it's okay because you're a questioner.
I am a questioner. I am and I'm glad that we're talking about legal things today, because that way we're out of Danny questioning things like why they put yellow 5 in every single food additive you can, and the FDA has somehow approved that, but it's not approved in any other developed nation, and yet they're okay with it.
The FDA sucks. You're not going to get of all the conspiracy theories that you're going to get pushback on from Ron Coleman. The FDA, not just sucking, but being potentially a literal danger to the health and well-being of Americans, is not one of them. Just what kind of sucker do you have to be at this point to be buying into that?
I'm terribly disappointed to see the statistics and the rates and everything. Things are just starting to click for me. I don't know how else to put it. Things are starting to fall into place. It's like, okay, wait a second. So the FDA is getting paid from 2 different industries, the food industry and from the drug company and the drug industry. They're over approving both industries. Let's say, for example, that Kellogg's were to put, I don't know, some sort of additive in their cereal that may cause ADHD, asthma, autism, and cancer. And we know for a fact that this has been proven in multiple tests, and it's even been banned in other countries. And let's say that Kellogg's wanted to utilize this substance because it's much cheaper than the natural alternative. So they pay the FDA a little bit, here or there. And then they give a call over to, I don't know, Pfizer, let's say. And Pfizer says, hey, guess what? We make a drug to fix that. And then they pay a little to the FDA, and then everybody's happy except for the consumer and the American people as we get dumber, fatter, and more sick, and slowly but surely die. But it's a slow death. That's the thing, right? No company wants immediate death. Everybody just wants you to be tired enough that you can't leave your job because you have your health insurance there and you don't want to be bankrupting your family.
There is a solution, though. There is a way out. And that way out, my friends, as he vamps a little bit more while setting up
Please.
the punchline, is to not be afflicted by so much life, but instead get executed.
Oh, jeez. That is one solution, right? Instead of just being sick.
So die. Michael Tracy is not my favorite account. He is a pretty left-wing guy. He calls them like he sees them, just that he often sees them really stupid. But what was interesting here, and I always liked it, so one of the things I think people often make a mistake and they think, how come you agree with this guy now who you usually disagree with? Why are you retweeting him? That's what's called an admission by a party opponent. Okay, that's the kind of testimony that you want, is when someone who tends to disagree with you is now agreeing with you. So I don't know what Michael Tracy's views are about the death penalty or about the way Black people are treated in this country, but he did this incredible thread really laying out exactly what happened with this guy, Marcellus Williams, who was executed after what, 20, how many years was it? Do you ridiculous amount of time.
This happened, what, 1980? I'll look it up. I don't want to be fact checked on this.
24 years ago was the trial. 24 years ago, the guy absolutely killed this lady. And this was like just the primo example of the misfiring of justice in this country. So, let me ask you something, Danny. Death penalty, pro or con?
Pro.
Me too. I don't see how you can, I mean, there are some, now I do agree that we need to be super duper satisfied. And look, the criminal justice system is really, really flawed. And there are people who also have been executed who are clearly mentally deficient. I'm prepared to hedge all kinds of things around the death penalty, but it really seems that we've become so averse to the idea of justice in this country, especially if it involves a minority that we will, not we, not you and I, but the elites will say just about anything and, you know, and accuse just about everyone of anything to avoid coming to terms with the fact that some people do not, actually, I put it, they forfeit their right to continue to live among us. Now, of course, you're a Bible reading lady, so you recognize that there are many offenses that the Bible says are appropriate for imposition of the death penalty. Now, this happens to be a complicated issue. You know, we're not living in a biblical society as such. But if you want to nonetheless talk about the values of the Bible and say, you know, there's no way that a loving person would ever want to take the life of someone regardless of what they've done. You can't, I don't see how you can rest on the Bible for that assertion. What you do see a lot, though, boy, someone said something so dumb, and I'm so tired of it, but they say it all the time. Yeah, I'm not going to find the tweet. How can you be pro-life and be in favor of the death penalty?
Oh, it's a level of dumb. That is a level of dumb I can't stand. It's, you know, what it is it's a lack of understanding regarding individual will and agency and the agency of a human being. And I think it stems from, I mean, I'm not a psychologist or anything, but we're talking our feelings on the death penalty right now. So I think it's fair to say,
well, not just our feelings, but our considered moral views.
sure,
It's not,
yes,
people are not here for feelings.
sure. So
Okay.
here's my rationale, or what I think happens often. Someone once told me that liberals and people who tend to be more so on the anti-death penalty side of things are individuals who see human beings as groups, as conglomerates, as being a part of something bigger, as almost as indistinguishable cogs in a wheel, if you will. And they talk a lot about internal struggles and internal change. But when it comes to changing society, they don't see changing themselves as the first step. And that reflects in policy, it reflects in law, it reflects in society as such. So, for example, instead of me walking down the street and seeing trash, as a conservative, I tend to think, oh, it's my job to clean up the trash. It's trashy because I have not picked it up. Whereas a liberal may look at the trash and go, the system has failed. The system has failed to collect the trash. There's trash that needs to be collected. Someone needs to take care of that. Rather than seeing it as an individual obligation and choice. Hold on one moment. My doggy has decided to be disruptive. Do you want to
See,
come
that's a
here?
choice.
Do you want out? Do you mind if I let him out just for 1 second?
No, I think you should. I think it's the right thing to do.
But to finish my point here very quickly is I think what it comes down to is people who see the world that way, who see systemic issues, who see everything as an external experience, see the world as an external experience rather than an internal experience. I think, therefore I am, versus I am, therefore I think. I think that changes the way that they view the death penalty and their morality around it. I think it causes them to have much more sympathy for people who commit atrocious crimes. And I think it allows them to excuse a lack of action and responsibility and a lack of accountability on the part of the individual, generally speaking.
No, I mean, and this goes a lot to what Danny has spoken about before. And those of you who are new may not know that Danny ran for prosecutor. Do they call it district attorney?
DA.
Yeah, for district attorney in the county of Salt Lake
County. Mhm.
in Utah, where she lived. And her interest in this came from a lot of life and pre-professional experience in this criminal justice system, where she really got to see how the criminal justice system fails, but it does and does not, and in her view, can and cannot, if I may speak for you, Danny, achieve in terms of improving people's lives. And in particular, how people are victimized by systems. I mean, and this is what Danny was just talking about this. You know, we say, the rabbis of the Talmud say, and this is something you can hear in many places, when you are kind to the cruel, you are ultimately being cruel to the kind.
Mm.
People who are, it's really not so different from the gun control discussion. If guns are made illegal, only criminals will have guns. If people can't defend themselves, then they will be defenseless. And I think we're past the point of anyone believing that the cops are just a minute away. I think we're past that. A society has the right and the obligation to defend itself. The only principled objection I think there really is to the death penalty. And actually, let me just, before I say that, there are sentences worse than death. I watched a video this week about the prison they built in El Salvador for the gang gang members.
13. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a fate worse than death. I think there are many, many people in there who wish they could simply not wake up. It is absolutely brutal. Now, the people in there, by and large, are terrible people. And most of them deserve a lot of punishment. But it's absolutely inhumane. It's inhumane.
But
you do
Ron,
need
they're
to.
not terrible people. The system failed them. They just are uneducated. They just had a hard life. And this is what I mean by
Right.
it's the way in which you perceive the world around you that changes your perspective. And that's what it is. It's a matter of acknowledging that these are people who've made horrible choices. They may have been good people at some point, right? When they were born, back
So
to your
so here's the thing, Danny, again, going back to what you saw in the homeless shelters, there are people who never had a shot at being good people, right?
no.
People whose parents were abusive from go, or people who grew up under the harshest of possible conditions, people who never had a shot. And this has been part of the human experience since even before I was born. Okay, this is old news. Having said that, those of us who are not afflicted by such circumstances should not have to be at risk of our lives and worrying about our families because of the tough breaks that these people, and by the way, this flows right into the immigration argument. Well, the whole world is worse off, certainly every country south of the border is worse off than America. So how can we deny them our limitless abundance and wealth? Well, first of all, it's not limitless. Second of all, it doesn't work that way. You know what? This is really all about borders. This is really all about borders. And by the way, I mean, just I alluded before to I didn't allude it, I mentioned it. You know, the fallacy of equating pro-life and anti-death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
without even coming onto the question of whether a fetus is the same as a person. Whatever it is, it's not guilty of a crime. It's not guilty of violence. It's not guilty. People who the death penalty applies to are guilty. And going back to what I was saying, the one thing you can say about the death penalty is it's the tragedy that you can't undo if someone's wrongly convicted. But we don't say, that's also true of incarceration. All right, but if someone's imprisoned wrongly for 20-something years and they get out, at least they have the rest of their lives. That's true. They do. But nonetheless, because there's something worse than being incarcerated for 20 years unjustly, which is the death penalty, presumably, why don't we also say that, well, since we can never really know if someone should be penalized by being imprisoned, let's not ever imprison anyone, because we never really know. You know what I'm getting at? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know exactly. I am with you 100%. I've thought this through quite a bit, and my issue, the reason that I bring up systemic perspectives and the perspectives of people who are along the lines of anti-death penalty, anti-prosecution, is because they have the same, it's along the same through line, right? And it's sad because this is a similar line that they just follow. It's a thread. It starts with, they didn't know better, they couldn't do better. And so, ergo, it's wrong for a system that is broken fundamentally, which starts on the premise that the system is broken, which I don't believe that it is. There are issues in the system that can be corrected, but that does not mean that the system is broken.
That's a big deal.
It's a big deal. So if you start with the premise of the system is broken and we shouldn't be punishing broken people for living in a broken system, we should try to rehabilitate them. And when you start to focus on rehabilitation, what you lose sight of is the concept of justice, the concept of balancing justice and mercy. You lose sight of the concept of punishment, of accountability, of responsibility. And I don't think anybody wants to be the executioner. Nobody wants to be the prosecutor. The prosecutor is a necessary evil, however, in balancing out and weighing mercy and justice. And that weighing effect, what happens there even at the prosecutorial stage, at the first stage, is then replicated by the jury. It's replicated by the judge. The jury shouldn't do it, but you know that the jury does, because we're all human beings. And we all want to, I think fundamentally, we all want what's best for our families, for society. And the jury, though, should be focused on the facts. They should be focused on what's happening in the case. They shouldn't have to worry about prosecutorial misconduct, which did occur in this case to a certain extent. Was it enough to make him innocent or to throw out a conviction? No. And the appeals court found that time and time again. Same with the DNA evidence. Was there a mishandling of the evidence? Absolutely. But was there sufficient evidence to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt, regardless of the DNA and the forensics, that this man had committed this crime? The answer to that was definitively yes. And the appeals courts held that time and time and time again. We are not gods. We are not omniscient, omnipotent. We don't know everything. We can't know everything. We're human beings doing the best that we can. But when someone so flagrantly disregards the life of another and the rights of others and intrudes on their life and takes that precious life from them, I do think that there's a level of justice that needs to be met there, that goes beyond simple punishment, that goes beyond rehabilitation, that is for the sake of bringing back balance to the universe, for the sake of bringing some sense of closure to the victim, because the victim's family is not the victim. The victim is the victim. It's the victim who lost their life, not just the family. Did the family lose a significant amount as a result? Absolutely. And that's why I'm such a strong advocate for victims' rights and making sure that each state implement some sort of victims' rights into their constitution, because we need justice, and without justice, there is no mercy.
So Caroline asks, what does the death penalty accomplish? And I don't even really understand the question. What does any penalty accomplish?
Right.
I will never get, you beat me up in the street, that's not a capital offense. You're just going to go to jail for 3 years. Well, what is going to jail going to accomplish? I still got beat up. We're no longer arguing it's going to make you a better person. We're past that. Prisons make people worse 90% or more of the time. There have been extraordinary stories of people truly being reformed in prison, but that's man bites dog. And as Derna explains, if justice were not an end in itself, then there would only be torts and no crimes.
Correct.
That's right. I mean, that's a great way of putting it. I never really one time I had the occasion to read an essay for an audiobook that Michael Malice put together about called The Anarchist Handbook. And he wanted me to read, and I did, an article by a lawyer from about 100 years ago who argued, or more, that there should be no government legal system. It should all be privatized. And without even coming on to criminal law, I remember I read it. And so, I thought about it. I remember thinking, this doesn't work. There are tremendous imbalances of power, even in the world of torts and contracts, that only an attempt at neutrality can possibly address. And once you come onto the world of criminal law, it's really a great point about the torts. Only tort.
So what does tort mean? Yeah, I'll let you go ahead and answer that.
Well, no, why not you? Come on, you went to law school more recently than I did.
Well, we're both civil litigators. So tort, the concept is you fall, you get hurt, someone is hurt, and someone needs to pay. There's this concept of there is an injury, it was caused by someone, something, and in order to make things right, you have to do something. In some way, you have to make up for that. This is very different than criminal law and ideas of justice and mercy. There's some overlap, right? How punitive damages, for example, is an example of where there's some overlap. We feel that your conduct was so outrageous and so beyond the pale that we are going to punish you by making you pay extra in an amount that is beyond just making up for what was lost. We need to now punish you by taking away your money. That's more so on the border of where we're looking at criminal law. Criminal is very, very different than civil law. Civil law assumes that there's some sort of remedy available. Criminal law, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Ron, but this has always been my conception of the two. Criminal law assumes that there is not a sufficient remedy that may be available because it is not something for which a remedy could be accessible, or there's no remedy that would make up for what has been lost as a result of the crime.
Right. In fact, it's you can a court in a criminal case can impose as part of a sentence restitution. That in addition to the criminal penalties, you will also be required to pay back what you took. But what criminal law says is that we, the society, will not permit this kind of conduct. We will not permit this kind of conduct. It doesn't matter how much, people often think that a plaintiff, a victim of a crime says, I don't want to prosecute. Therefore, there won't be a prosecution. That's actually not really how it goes. The victim of a crime may be a complainant. So yes, if you don't complain, then there may be nothing for the state to do. But if a police officer witnesses a crime or becomes aware of facts that indicate that a crime was committed, you don't need to be a complainant. You don't need to file a criminal complaint. The police department files the criminal complaint, or the prosecutor. The police department goes to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor says, we the state, we the people of the state of Nevada, we the people of the state of California are going to step in here. Now, it is true that if the main victim of a crime refuses to cooperate, meaning that that person is resistant to giving testimony, either out of fear or any kind of attitude, a prosecutor may decide that it may not be worthwhile because the main witness and presumably the victim are not going to testify. It's going to be hard to get a conviction. But that's our little primer on criminal law. And so a tort, right? So the difference between a tort and a contract, a tort is a kind of civil wrong that someone does that doesn't involve a contract. Stepping on your toe, punching you in the face, infringing your trademark, your copyright, your patent,
trespassing,
defaming you,
negligence, product liability.
And then there's negligence. James asks as since we're doing basics tonight, why not? What are the limits of restitution in civil law? Can a court just order an apology and money?
No. A court can order you to start doing something and stop doing something. What else can a court order you to do?
I don't think courts can actually order an apology. And money is restitution. Yes, a court can't. What are the limits? Well, restitution is money. I mean,
well, the court can order an apology if it's in a settlement agreement. That's the context in which I'm
right. It can be enforced. A settlement agreement that includes a policy can be enforceable by a court, but a court won't order someone to say something.
Right.
Which is why, for example, whenever you see any kind of statement that by a company that says, our previous advertisement about X was incorrect, and the court's not making them say that. They're saying that so they don't have to go to court. That's part of some settlement, whether it's with the FDA. Oh, the FDA again, Federal Trade Commission, whatever it may be. James, what are the limits of restitution in civil law? There's no. I mean, obviously, there's no limit. Look what they did to Alex Jones. He got some people pissed off because he said something incredibly stupid. They defamed. They distorted the tort of defamation to include something that it is not. And they bankrupted this very well-off man. You may or may not feel sorry for him, but you should feel sorry for the justice system that it has been utilized in such a grossly political way. Another comment from Derna. If someone commits selfish homicide, that endangers society if it is allowed to stand. Or even if it's selfless homicide. Any kind of homicide.
Bad. Homicide bad.
Yes. So yes, those are you guys are asking really, really good questions. I appreciate this. And again, I want to thank those of you who have joined us. If you didn't hear my earlier welcome, for the first time. Danny and I do this every couple of weeks, usually on Wednesday night. Sometimes things happen, so if we have to push it off, we've got Thursday night as a backup. Yvette, thank you for saying hello to everybody. We talk about topics that are usually of some legal interest. We got a little bit off course last week. I mean, we can listen, the law, what doesn't the law touch these days? Question from Peter First Name. Did the chat about tort mean paying a tort fees enough for the challenge? I don't know what was being implied. I guess I have to find that. Chat, which I'm not going to do. Self-defense is justified homicide. No, I guess it literally is homicide. You have killed a person.
Right. It's the unlawful killing of a person is murder, right?
But right, homicide, the crime does not exist if you have committed. But I mean, that's a night, Derna. I like how you're thinking.
Oh, hold on. I'm pulling up my Black dictionary. Hold on. Black's Law Dictionary. Homicide is the killing of one person by another, whether lawful or not. So, yep.
Oh,
yeah.
So okay,
that's what I thought. Yep. So I'm looking it up. Listen, Ron, I just had to look it up. It's not something. I mean, these are definitions.
But I'm Ron Coleman. I'm supposed to know it by now.
But hold on, Ron. Hold on.
I don't do criminal laws, of course.
Let me give you a little bit. So a little bit of background here for everybody's knowledge. Each jurisdiction has different definitions for what constitutes different crimes and criminal acts. So some states will call things, a premeditated homicide or homicide first, whatever they're going to call it. Whereas other jurisdictions will straight out say this is murder. Another example is assault versus battery. Some jurisdictions consider battery also an assault. It's under the same umbrella, so they just say assault. Whereas other jurisdictions break down the difference between an assault and a battery. Battery means touching. Assault means no touchy-touchy. But very close to, basically would have otherwise. So just a little bit of credit.
I want to welcome to the chat my friend and our benefactor this evening. Or did he just disappear? Or maybe he just signed off?
He's here, Valiant Renegade.
Yeah, but he's not. The type ahead isn't coming through on YouTube for me. Where'd he go? Hey, Valiant. Well, anyway, thanks for stopping in, Valiant. No, VALL should be picking up, but it's not. Okay, stuff happens. Yes. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, says Valiant. In any event, we got that. So, topic number one for tonight. This guy was executed. He had it coming. He had it coming a long time ago. Thank you, Torin. Thank you. I want to thank. I see, I keep switching between the official. There we go. Great stream. Thank you, Torin 3. Danny?
I will. I'll make it there. Thank you so very much, Torin.
That's very nice of you. I'll try to stop by and say happy birthday as well.
He's phenomenal. Thank you, Torin.
He had it coming. There's a lot, and there, a lot of the press that was generated in connection with this guy came from something called the Innocence Project, which has.
Sorry, did I roll my eyes on camera? I apologize.
What happened?
I have issues with the Innocence Project. I have so many issues.
No, a lot of people really turned around. People who had been, as I have been, as most of us have been for a very long time, very sympathetic towards their work, but apparently now they're just anti-death penalty, and they'll just throw up whatever.
I just think that the mask has come off with them. That's what it is. The mask has come off. Same with the ACLU. The mask has come off. No, the ACLU has genuinely changed over time. I take that back. take that back, because they did have policies before that were far more focused on ensuring constitutional rights being protected.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
yeah, and they've changed over time. So I can't say that about them. But with the Innocence Project, I do think that the mask came off.
This is such a common problem because there's so many initiatives and organizations that are created to do good things. And what happens is they end up their main focus becomes justifying their own continual existence.
Mhm.
I know somebody who was at the Anti-Defamation League a generation ago who said, we all knew that there really wasn't defamation. There wasn't really a big anti-Semitism problem. We're talking about the 80s now. We had to keep finding it. We had to look for it. I think we can actually say now that that's not true. Breaking news from Valiant, and he's not the first one to mention it. New York Mayor Adams indicted on federal charges.
Campaign corruption investigation. So now we're getting the details, because we knew that he was under investigation and that they had taken his cell phones, that they had raided his home. They had done the same to a commissioner. They had done the same to the police chief there. There is a lot going on. And you heard about the judge who was also under investigation for corruption, who self-deleted
When?
just this week. One moment.
A judge killed his badge? Not the one who was killed by the sheriff's deputy.
So yes, this is one who took his own life. Judge Stuart Rosenwasser, and
Oy.
he's a retired judge, and he got caught up in. Turns out, allegedly, he had taken some funds to find a certain way.
You know, that, which makes me think of what Derna said here. The administrative state finds reasons to perpetuate its own existence every bit as much as purportedly nonprofit organizations do, and even more so, probably. And the justice system, which we started out talking about, there is this gigantic potential for abuse. I mean, nothing that Danny and I have said here should in any way, no one who's ever watched us before could ever possibly think so, be meant as an endorsement of the justice system. I mean, even though Danny said something rather astonishing a few minutes ago, which is that it's not really broken. Fletcher Boy, thank you for throwing in. Fletcher Boy, I've been the victim of IRS's relentless attacks. I've lost all faith in the federal court. Oh, they will. Is there any judge that will ever second guess the government on anything?
No.
I spent a lot of money to ultimately be vindicated. You were assumed guilty from the start. This is literally true when it comes to tax litigation. The burden of proof is on you, the defendant. The IRS, how this
Immigration
passes,
too. It flips our justice system on its head. It assumes you're guilty until you prove your innocence. The exact same. It's not how this is happening with our Constitution, with our judicial norms, with our legal norms and standards and everything else is beyond the pale. It's beyond me. Well, and that's why we all celebrated Chevron deference's disappearance, but it doesn't solve everything. And I think that's what people misunderstood about the Chevron deference case. They thought, well, once Chevron deference was gone, then, we would have justice.
now the government's not in charge anymore.
Right. Well, what it means is that judges would have a little more discretion, but they're still going to weigh in favor of the state by and large, as they have forever. And once the state has made its determination regarding your innocence or guilt, you have to prove that you didn't do something. whether that be digging a hole in your backyard and disturbing the water or violating the waterways, what is it? The Waterways Act, right? Or whether that be you putting the wrong dates and addresses on your immigration forms, or whether that be you miscalculating your taxes and submitting that, or your CPA miscalculating your taxes and submitting that to the IRS.
Speaking of the justice system, and speaking of misunderstanding, I want to switch us to another story.
Oh, and speaking of civil law and criminal law, because this I did not know was a thing. I don't know how I didn't know this, Ron.
Well, because I think that what you didn't know isn't quite what people think that they do know. Okay, so Andrew Weissman, and I want to back up. Start out with my friend Kurt Schlichter, my friend and client, Kurt Schlichter. Being a rutabaga is a choice, and Andrew Weissman has clearly made it. This guy's legal takes are always wrong, and yet he has had tremendous power. His take is astonishingly stupid, even for this buffoon, says Kurt. This is a fascinating development under state law for the Trump-Vance conduct rate of the Haitian community in Springfield. Conduct. What's the conduct? Remember, they said, this was our topic 2 weeks ago, they're eating cats and dogs. There appear to be more than a little merit to some of the alleged specifications. I don't know what specifications are. So apparently there's something that looks to people who are not, everyone's reading our private messages, our plan for tonight. Everyone is reading, apparently there is a provision in Ohio that affidavit uses state statute allowing private citizens to file charges. Not quite. Not quite. Remember we were explaining the people of the state? The power of the people of the state is vested in prosecutors. Prosecutorial discretion, that was the subject matter of our first stream. When we talked about Danny running for DA, you can't just file an affidavit. Can you just imagine how much fun it would be if you could just sick the state?
You go to jail and you go to jail. It's like that meme, right? Like, oh, I don't understand why they allow them to do this. In Venezuela, you just go to jail, straight to jail. Undercooked fish, jail. Overcooked fish, also jail. Like that's basically what this, it's absurd. This is absurd.
So it turns out, let me see if I can find a good, it's not filing charges. It is a kind of, and it's some of the dumb takes. I mean, this is just priceless. America, you make it so easy to do this. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences of that free speech. Trump and Vance could be, or at least they acknowledge, could be facing criminal charges for continuing to lie about the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, who may or may not be eating cats and dogs. No, I mean, they could be. Anything's possible, but not under any legal system that any of us knows. What they can do is basically it's not so different from writing a letter to the prosecutor's office and saying, could you please consider filing charges?
Oh,
that's it. That's all it really is.
Okay.
I want to latest. I got to look for under latest because people have been explaining this, and it turns out that this group that's filed the charges is a left-wing immigrant activist group.
No, really?
Yeah.
What? I just thought that they were concerned citizens who were worried about the welfare of the
Can you
good
imagine?
people of Springfield, Ohio.
In any event,
This attack, this overt attack on free speech at every single turn, Ron, at every single turn, whether it be a private attack on free speech, whether it be a government orchestrated attack on free speech. I'm kind of getting over it. I'm done. I'm over it. I'm done with it. I was done with it back in 2016. I was done with it in 2019, in 2020, in 2024. I'm done with it. I'm over it. I'm over it. It's time to move on. There's no such thing as hate speech, except for, maybe in your college courses or in your DEI class that you're required to take whenever you go to any major corporation who's all signed up with the World Economic Forum agenda that, pushes this governance, social engineering bullcrap on the rest of us. Freedom of speech. That's it. That's it. I don't have anything else to say. The First Amendment exists. You don't like it. Move. Get out. Leave. Go cry yourself a river. I don't care, Ron. I'm over it. I'm just so frustrated. When you have the FBI setting up internal portals at Twitter and taking down people's accounts for legal processing because they posted not even spicy memes, just memes about the failures of transportation, the failures of being able to get ships in during COVID and during supply crises. Okay. Those tweets were worthy of having the FBI not only take down their account, but keep the information for legal processing according to their internal emails. Make that make sense. It's disgusting. It's disturbing. It should disturb all of you. All of you. And guess what? You may hate Alex Jones. You may think he's a nut. You may think, you know what? Everything he did to those poor families, he deserves to be punished. But if you think that a man being not only deplatformed is insufficient, but having his entire life go into ruination, despite him apologizing for his prior bad acts, despite him acknowledging that what he said was not socially acceptable and may have caused the family some harm, which I don't think he's ever admitted to that, but he's apologized for whether or not it caused harm. Regardless, it all falls under this umbrella of you said something, ergo, you must be punished because it hurt my feelings. And so it must be punished not just civilly, but criminally. The punishments must be so severe that you cannot change your ways. You cannot argue in the marketplace of ideas. You cannot allow ideas to spread or discuss them or shoot them down. You are not allowed to question the authority of the state. It is insane. You aren't allowed to question the authority of the group anymore. Not just the state.
And Fletcher Boy, and thanks for your super chat. Fletcher Boy asks, segues are just so hot and heavy tonight. Perfect.
So sorry.
No, what do you mean? Perfect. This is perfect. I'm not being facetious.
That's
How
right.
long
That's
before court challenges the California chief? This goes exactly to your point, which is that they want to make it illegal to say things that make hurts. So you guys probably know that you guys saw the did I play the video last week? No,
I don't believe you did.
This was a video. Okay, we're gonna take a moment now, since Fletcher Boy has been so kind to us to both donate and ask this great question. We're gonna have some quality time with a cheap fake.
I love these.
Resurrection. Is it this one? No. Is it this one? No. This one.
I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed the senility of the debate. Thanks, Joe.
Why?
I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant. Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time, and there is such great significance to the passage of time. Another trick is trying to sound black. I pretend to celebrate Kwanzaa, and in my speeches, I always do my best Barack Obama impression. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And okay, look, maybe my work addressing the root causes of the border crisis were catastrophic, but my knowledge of international politics is truly shocking. The United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. It is an alliance that is strong and enduring. And just remember, when voting this November, it is important to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And by what has been, I mean, Joe Biden. You think the country went to over the past 4 years? You ain't seen nothing yet.
Hey, if anyone here missed that, you've now seen it. And yes, as and Allegan News wants to know, do we get the Newsom fake from the same account, from the Mr. Reagan account? You asked for it, you got it. Okay, let's. Did you see that one?
No.
Oh, well then, you are in for a surprise.
By the way, that was the second time that she's messed up South Korea with North Korea. And to make it even worse, she was part of a group that was in South Korea talking and she was part of the delegation trying to strengthen our relationship with South Korea.
Because who else would you send for that kind of job? I mean, somebody with such excellent foreign policy experience. So again, we're gonna now see the Gavin Newsom parody.
I mean, to be fair, the Olympics did too.
I'm definitely not gay. A lot of people are criticizing me for banning AI-generated political videos. So let me explain. The problem is that Democrats, like me, we're not the brightest bulbs in the tanning bed. We can't always distinguish between reality and fiction. When Elon Musk posted Mr. Reagan's brilliant Kamala Harris parody video, I thought that was real. And so I realized, without laws governing what we are allowed to see and hear, how will we ever know what's really true? If I don't ban Mr. Reagan's AI parody videos, how would we ever know that Trump will be a dictator on day one, or that if he doesn't win, he's promised a bloodbath? How would we know that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation? Also, I'm definitely not gay. Also, how would we know that inflation is transitory and that the border is secure? How would we know that COVID came from bat soup and Trump told everyone to enjoy lunch? How would we know that boys can be girls and girls can be boys and there's no such thing as gender? How would we know that Trump is controlled by Vladimir Putin? Also, I'm super not gay. Also, how would we know that Trump totally assaulted E. Jean Carroll in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room? How would we know the 2020 election was totally legitimate with zero fraud? How would we know that January 6th was an armed insurrection where many police officers lost their lives? How would we know that the COVID vaccines had zero side effects and that masks were 100% effective? How would we know Kamala brilliantly invented her very own original idea, no tax on tips, or that I'm totally not gay?
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
How would we know that Trump wrote Project 2025 or that Trump staged both of his assassination attempts? And how would we know that Trump is literally Hitler? Reincarnation is definitely a thing. Hitler died in 1945. Trump was born in 1946. How would we know that all of that is true if we don't ban Mr. Reagan's AI parody videos? How would we know that we should all drink the Kool-Aid? We won't know because Mr. Reagan's AI parody videos are a threat to our democracy. They spread dangerous disinformation, unlike all of the super true stuff that we Democrats tell you. And also, most importantly, I'm definitely not gay.
Mr. Reagan.
So, in case any of you didn't follow the story, I will take you through. With the help of my talented wife, Jane Coleman, who writes for Legal Insurrection,
Oh,
who reported on the story last Friday, about my friend Ted Franks, my former client also. I say former because he's a lawyer. He doesn't usually need a client, but at one time he needed a lawyer, and I helped him out. California's crackdown on AI-generated political parody is unconstitutional, lawsuit says. Lawyers. Mr. Reagan's satire videos, which have garnered millions of views, are precisely the kind of speech that the First Amendment was designed to protect. So there's Mr. Definitely not gay, smirky smirk face, showing off that he had just signed the law making AI illegal. And I will make this a little bit bigger. So, Mr. Reagan, I think, is the plaintiff. Maybe it's another plaintiff actually. Creator of viral political parody videos suing. I'll put this in front of me so I can. Suing California officials. I don't think that looks right. Is that screwing up your look? Yeah, let's keep it the way it was. Over new laws restricting AI-generated content. Let's do it this way. From being posted and shared online, the legislation took on political urgency over the summer after Governor Gavin Newsom called one of the videos illegal. In July, the YouTuber known as Mr. Reagan released the parody Kamala Harris campaign ad featuring AI-generated cuts that sound just like her. But you know you're watching a spoof when Harris says things like, I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet.
Oh, I thought that you were going to say, we know that it's a parody because it was too well thought out.
Yeah, right. Well, that would be clever. That would be a little bit too nuanced.
Sure.
Or that she's been selected because she's the ultimate diversity. So the video caught the attention of someone who knows creative genius when he sees it. Elon Musk, who called it amazing. And that's the video we just watched.
It was amazing.
So once Musk retweeted it, the brilliant satire, shut up, also caught the attention of Governor Newsom, even though Mr. Reagan's YouTube video acknowledges that its content is digitally generated and it's labeled parody. Newsom was not amused. The video was too real. Manipulating a voice in an ad like this one should be illegal. Newsom warned in a tweet 2 days later, I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is. There he goes.
This is like a really bad hypothetical in a law school exam.
Right?
It's comical. It's comical. I would see this as a hypothetical in some sort of constitutional law exam.
So, going back to the article, here we go. Earlier this week, Newsom made good on his threat, signing into law a set of bills to safeguard the integrity of our elections.
There's a lot of deepfakes out there. There's not a lot of disclosure. There's not a lot of labeling. So among the many AI bills that are on the desk are three specific election-related bills.
Do you want to sign some laws?
I just thought, why waste your time with a politician unless they're going to do something for you? There's
Two are signed and three are signed.
and this is now official. That is now injunctive relief if you do any of those deepfake election misrepresentations. So that's how easy it is to govern.
What a pussy.
That's how easy it is to govern when you act like a dictator. Of course it is.
So the question that was asked was, who's going to sue? Well, Ted Wells and the Hamilton Lincoln Law Institute sued. And yes, they represent Mr. Reagan, Christopher Coles, challenging the statutes, declare the laws unconstitutional. The defending democracy. It's always defending democracy, ain't it? Okay, and the lawsuit shows that according to the law, what what they say the properly labeled video would really look like. Okay, I'm not sure. I haven't read it myself. Yeah, I'm going to move on, but I want to share one more. Maybe we'll do even more. But this was the response. Remember, this is classic Streisand effect. Oh, you're not getting the right share.
Nope. And I was just pausing because I figured you were working on it.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to, guys. This is gonna be worth it. You're not going to regret it. This one's for the Babylon Bee. And away we go.
Hi, I'm Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. This is a message for the people of America, given in my authentically recorded non-AI voice. Thanks to my leadership over the last several years, California has become a world leader in extremist left-wing governance. My policies were so effective that almost 1 million people are now fleeing the state every year. We even ran out of U-Hauls. During the COVID pandemic, I locked everyone in their homes and shut down businesses for months. Not the French Laundry, though. That's my favorite restaurant. Last year, I cleaned up the dangerous, messy streets of San Francisco, because Chinese Communist President Xi was coming, and I really wanted to impress him. He's my boss, after all. This year, I signed legislation that allows me to take custody of your kid if you refuse to give him artificial hormones and chop off his genitals. Because if you don't do that, you're a bigot, and bigots shouldn't be allowed to have kids. I've also led the way in green energy by banning all cars that don't run on electricity. Then I banned almost all the electricity. This is smart leadership. On my watch, the cost of living and homelessness have skyrocketed. Schools are failing. Drug dealers and human traffickers are pouring across the border. And poop has covered the sidewalks of San Francisco. This is the positive, joyful vision we offer as Democrats. That's why I'm enthusiastically endorsing Kamala Harris for president in 2024. She'll do to the country everything I did in California. Anyway, I'm California Governor Gavin Newsom, and I approve this 100% real message, which is a recording of my voice without the assistance of any AI whatsoever. This isn't a deep fake, and you can rest assured that it isn't, because I just signed an unconstitutional law outlawing deep fakes. No one would dare violate it. Thank you, and science bless America.
So
Brought to you by the Democratic People's Republic of California.
So now I gotta admit, since we're getting into this, and this really should have been but it's the segues have just been great. I want to share with you a video that a very well-known intellectual property lawyer, who is a legend in his own mind, did on the topic of these whatchamacallit, the Ron Coleman. Yeah, I can't find my own video. It was me, of course. Ron Coleman. I kind of find it. There was a point that I was concerned that people were missing. And it was almost like a month ago. It wasn't even a week ago, and I've lost track of my own content. Bottom line is, there is actually an intellectual property law basis for what they're trying to do, and it's very California specific. I'm going to still try to find it because I'm stubborn.
Is the concept that whatever company owns the AI owns whatever you create with the AI?
No, not quite. No, it's the concept that you cannot copy celebrity voices, which is a trademark law doctrine and It comes up under what's called the right of publicity.
Oh, I'm remembering something about a robot dressed as a model. I'm remembering this case law.
Yeah, boy, I should have. I wasn't really planning to present my own creativity here, but maybe I'll find it before we're done here. But listen, someone said it's the Ninth Circuit, so we know these used to be SNL political bits. You're right. That's a great point. I mean, this is classic stuff. This is it is utterly ridiculous that we are having this discussion. But going back to what Danny was saying before, they are so utterly intimidated by hard words that they don't like, that they just want to shut it down. And one of the scary things is that they're doing this kind of thing because they believe that they have complete control over the justice system, over the prosecution, over the prosecutors, over the courts. And we flashed on a comment from Fletcher Boy, who's been extremely generous tonight, who observed that, well, it's the Ninth Circuit, so who knows where that's going to go. You know what? I think even the Ninth Circuit will have no problem.
How does that work? Because
it goes to the district court, and then it would go to the Ninth Circuit on appeal. So what's the question?
My question is, how is there a intellectual property right protection for the voice of a politician? And right? Because it's not like political slogans can have that type of protection, right?
Right.
So then how are their voices and their likeness protected? It's not like the scenario with the Wheel of Fortune case of what is her name? Vanna White.
Vanna White.
Right. So in a case with Vanna White, there was a robot that was dressed up to look like Vanna White, perform like Vanna White. If I recall correctly, she won that case, saying that she owned her own likeness. She owned the profits to her own likeness.
The right of publicity is very broad, and California protects it better than anybody else.
Right.
But this issue here goes specifically to voices, and I did find my video, so indulge me. You're getting free content here.
I love it. I love learning because this is interesting. This is very intriguing to me.
I think that the lawyer in you will particularly appreciate this. Hi, it's Ron Coleman. I want to talk a little bit about the law of trademark and likeness and the right of publicity in the context of the new California law, which is quite clearly unconstitutional, which prohibits AI-generated political parodies if they're deep fakes. There's already been a lawsuit brought about that, and I'm posting this actually above a tweet to an article by Jane Coleman on this topic in Illegal Insurrection. She covers it with her typical accuracy, depth, and originality. I just want to point out something that I think people should appreciate. It is true that this is unconstitutional, and this is not a trademark law, but I do believe that this is the premise of this legislation. Trademark law is primarily concerned with protecting symbols, names, and images, but it also intersects with the rights of personality, especially when it comes to celebrities. And that includes celebrity voices, and especially when they're used for commercial purposes. And there have been a number of landmark cases in this area. The most important one was in 1988. Bette Midler sued Ford Motor Company, which had hired a sound-alike impersonator for a commercial after she declined to perform in their commercial. The court ruled that her voice was part of her identity, and it was protected under California's right of city law. So the case didn't directly involve trademark law, but it established that a celebrity's voice can be a protectable attribute, and it can influence how trademark and publicity rights are viewed in similar contexts. In 1992, just 4 years later, Tom Waits won a lawsuit against Frito-Lay for using a voice that was so similar to his in a commercial that it was clearly an imitation. The court reinforced the ruling of the Midler case that a celebrity's voice, certainly unless permission is given, if it's distinctive and widely known, cannot be imitated for commercial use without consent. So these cases touch upon trademark law indirectly through the concept of passing off or consumer confusion. If a voice imitation is used in a way that could lead consumers to believe that they're hearing the actual celebrity endorsing a product, this might infringe on trademark principles or rights of publicity by creating confusion about the source or endorsement of goods or services. So the primary legal avenue isn't really trademark, it's the right of publicity, which protects against the misappropriation of identity, including voice, and which is very, very strongly protected in California. Why? Because California is the home of the movie studios. So recent discussions involving advancements in AI bring these issues back to the forefront. And the logic of Midler and Waits suggests that AI-generated imitations of celebrity voices could be actionable under right of publicity laws. There is an exception for parody or transformative use, as there always is. If the imitation is clear in context, if it's clear that the imitation is not really the voice of the person himself, and if it's transformative, meaning that it's used in a way that's really different from the original use of the voice, whether it's commercial use, the likelihood of confusion, these are factors that might be considered. This presumably is what somebody thought would be a good platform on which to build California's anti-AR parody law. The problem, as Jane points out, and as Ted Frank points out in his lawsuit, which is what Jane's Legal Insurrection article focuses on, is that, first of all, this is political speech, not commercial speech. Secondly, the statute purports to make a distinction for parody and satire, but it doesn't really define them, which is understandable because they are somewhat esoteric concepts, but it makes the statute really vague. The main point here, though, is that this is political speech. It's probably not confusing. And we're not talking about a right of publicity, which is usually exploited as a commercial property right by politicians, but rather it goes to their political identities. It is true that there is probably some context where using even a political person's voice in a confusing and deceptive way could be actionable, but it's a pretty good bet that the Hamilton-Lincoln lawsuit against the new California law prohibiting obviously silly AI deep fakes will be successful.
Shouldn't be allowed to have kids. I've also
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my primer on that. And a number of people in the comments are asking how about impersonators? How about Alex Baldwin? That's transformative use. That's clearly parody. That's clearly satire. The argument here is that people are deceived. People really think that this is Kamala Harris calling herself the ultimate DI hire, or this is really Gavin Newsom repeating over and over again that he's really not gay. That's not going to cut it. So that is what this is about. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about how that lawsuit goes. I was supposed to talk to Ted Frank about it, but I don't know if we've put that together yet. In any event, I thank you for your comments and thoughts, my friends. And Brittany points out, after all, people are pretty stupid. Well, we can only go so far, and the Constitution will only let us go so far to protect people against their own stupidity. And this is actually a topic in broadly speaking, when we talk about deceptive speech is one of the exceptions to free speech. But you don't usually you can get an injunction to stop somebody from certain kinds of deceptive speech, but not if it's an opinion, and certainly not if it's the kind of thing that people should recognize as parody or transformative use. In the United States, our standard for trademark infringement, which is a related concept, is a likelihood of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's likely that consumers will be confused. And we do all kinds of surveys, and we do all kinds of motion practice trying to figure out who is the market, who is the consumer. In the UK, the way they describe this standard is, would an idiot in a hurry notice? I think that's something like that. An idiot in a hurry notice, make the mistake. Person has to. We will assume a certain amount of simple-minded, as Brittany points out, but at the end of the day, we do require people to think for themselves.
My concern here, well, I have many concerns here with the laws. I think it will fail. But what bothers me about this is that I see the public policy arguments in favor of having something similar to this. And in a commercial context, I definitely think that people have the right to their own voice and likeness and those sorts of things. They should be able to capitalize on that. That being said, I think that there is a public policy argument to ensuring that deep fakes do not disrupt the public perception of reality as it pertains to our political candidates, let's say in a race or otherwise, right? I could see the value in wanting people to know that this is parody, or that it is, whatever transformative work you want to make it into. They could have narrowly tailored this,
right,
by simply putting a tiny, watermark on each video or in a description or some sort of notification to let the viewer know, hey, by the way, this is generated by AI. This is not the real person. And that would have been a more narrowly tailored law that I think addresses the concerns without trampling on the First Amendment.
James makes a great point, one that I actually had a fight with on X last week, where somebody, like you said, the word parody was there, but you don't see it till it's cut off.
Right.
Yeah, there are limits.
By a few parody accounts. They're pretty good. They're so close to something that the public would expect, that the public would hope to see, right? Something that we're looking for. And it's very tricky. You do have to do a little bit more digging, but who's the onus on to do shouldn't the public?
It's moron in a hurry, not an idiot. A moron in a hurry. In the UK, trademark law.
Charlene T is pointing out my suggestion, which is a watermark not unlike a paid for by notice. So this ad is paid for by the GOP or by, Presidents for Trump or whatever. And at the end, they always say, I endorse this message, but it's not from the candidate themselves. A moron in a hurry.
You just got to love it.
I do love it.
But we're not allowed to use that kind of language anymore.
Why not?
Well, you and I are, because no one likes us. But if you want, who was it? Was it last week that Elon tweeted something about restoring the use of the word retard?
It's a clinical term. I understand that people may be upset by it, but it's sort of actually, South Park did an episode on this, and it was regarding the word faggot. And I think that they get dragged into Congress and they said, well, what makes someone an faggot? And they explain it. And my whole thing with the now coined slur retard is that when it's used in a derogatory manner, it's used for people who choose to act as though they are slow, which is the definition, retardation, or it means to be slow. So these are people who are choosing slowness, who are otherwise not slow. And it is a slur against them, not people who are clinically slow. That's like saying feminism is cancer and saying that cancer is now a slur because my grandmother died of cancer. And so I'm particularly sensitive to the word cancer. So you can't use the word cancer anymore when you describe things, which is an absurdity, right? We wouldn't say that you can't use this as an adjective to describe something, but now we've gotten to a point where you can't use clinical terms jokingly. You can't make jokes. That's where we are at. Nothing is funny anymore. Nothing is allowed to have any element of humor. And I genuinely believe that it's a okay. All I'm going to say is that there are certain people who very much hate humor. And those certain groups of people, historically speaking, have been socialists and communists. They despise humor. Whether it be a dog doing a certain salute to a certain historical figure as
Right.
a joke, or whether that, and guess who would be most offended by
I
that?
interviewed a Dankula about that.
Who would have been most offended by that?
Me, Ron Coleman.
No, I
Or
mean,
maybe dogs.
it's the people who the dog is saluting. It's a joke. It is funny because they would have been offended by this concept that a dog would be doing this. It's funny for that reason. But when you have to explain the joke every time, it loses its element of laughter. And I'm just sad. I'm very sad about this. I want to live in a funny world. I want to live in a world where we can tell jokes.
You live in Utah, Danny. If you wanted to live in a funny world, I don't think Utah is where you'd pick.
Oh, we're funny. We're plenty funny.
But not the, it was funny.
We're very nice. You're right. We're very nice.
You're very nice.
Yes. We're not allowed to make jokes at the expense of others, right? So
Right. So I mean, that's why a person has to come to New York.
But
for
humor is the first victim, in my opinion. Humor, I would say truth and exposing political corruption and exposing, alliances, agreements between private individuals. Truth was the first to die with this attack on free speech. Then came humor, because humor requires some elements of truth, but you can't speak the truth.
Let's hear the truth from Danny.
Lives of Mormon wives and wondered, there's no way that can be real. Let me tell you, as a former Mormon and former divorce attorney, it's very real. And I can't wait to share my secrets with you guys tonight. Love you.
See, that's funny.
It's fun.
Guys heard of the new Secret Lives of Mormon wives and wondered, there's no way that can be real.
That's funny. And that's an example of just how funny you can be in Utah. Don't let anyone say otherwise.
But I want humor back. I want this
No,
back.
I actually discussed this with a number of comedians on my podcast, and in real life. It has become extremely hard because Chris Rock, right, 10 years ago, stopped performing on college campuses because even a tool like Bill Maher, who is usually pretty comfortable repeating the official line on everything, has recently had to remind his own audience that they have to grow up. Are we just going to become two different countries, two different silos of people who can take a joke and people who can't take a joke?
It certainly seems to be the way we're going, Ron. And it's not just online. I mean, the culture war, in my opinion, really started online. Uh,
Oh,
and it was.
no, it didn't really. No, you can't really say that.
I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that.
She's going to say.
I'm
it.
going to say this. I'm going to assert. I'm going to assert something here. My opinion is that the culture war really started online, and the reason it was able to start online and not in real life is because there was a level of anonymity, and there was sort of this Wild West feature of the online world where people could say whatever they wanted. They could be as offensive as they wanted. They could make whatever jokes that they wouldn't be able to make otherwise in polite society. Then that was utilized as and weaponized against the rest of society by those who couldn't take the joke or who were so grossly offended by the speech that was going on online. And that is why I say, the culture war obviously predated the internet, but it didn't come into effect. It didn't become a hot war really until the internet and until the use of the internet. That's my hot take.
So let me give you this hot take from Bill Maher that I was referring to. There was a very good treatment of it from Liberal Hive Mind. Goes something like this.
Viral online. But even if that's the case, it's not exactly a great defense. Just take a look at what the modern left has become.
So let's not bury the lead. The big story this week, they tried to shoot Trump again. Let's not funny.
Sorry, and I'm not, it's not funny, but it's funny. His delivery is golden. How can you not?
But it's really interesting here because it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell what he's trying to do here.
It's atrocious, right? And that's
I'm being serious now. That's the second time this happened. I said this before. There can be no fuzz on this. This is not funny. Okay? It's not okay. It's not okay to wish it happened. Well, this is a problem.
But Ron, that's the thing. Comedy is born in tragedy.
Yes.
We've known this since the Greeks. Why do people not understand this? We laugh at uncomfortable situations. It's a stress relief. And even better than just being a stress relief, it is a societal moment of breathing, in my opinion. It's a moment where society takes a deep breath and we're able to process tragedy together. It's a beautiful thing. It can be a beautiful thing. It can also be horrible, right? Nobody wants to be the butt of any joke. No one wants to be it to veer into harassment per se. And I can understand that. And certain jokes should not be off limits, but shouldn't be laughed at. They aren't things that are appropriate, and timing is everything. But humor is so subjective too.
You know,
how do you
draw the line?
Yes.
Answer. And someone said this a couple minutes ago when I put it up on the screen. You have to draw the line as an individual. And you have to, it simply can't be the government, or for that matter, YouTube or Twitter or X or Facebook deciding what's funny and what's tasteless. And let me tell you something. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the incredibly offensive stuff that has come back to Twitter on anti-Semitism. And as I said to you, it spoils the experience. Not doesn't spoil it, but it degrades the experience for me online. But I wouldn't say should be outlawed. And we should at least, be honest that whether there are rules, if there are rules, then let's say there are rules. And if there aren't rules, then there aren't rules. Fine. At the end of the day, we don't have, and this is an argument that I made after the Slants case, my big Supreme Court case. we don't have the societal consensus. When the Lanham Act, the Trademark Act, was passed shortly after World War II, and Congress enacted a law, signed into law by President Truman, prohibiting the registration of disparaging trademarks. Everyone understood what disparaging meant, because it was a much more homogeneous society. Homogeneous? I think it's more homogeneous society. There was much less variation. There was much more that was hidden and it could not be said, and that wasn't necessarily better. We can have that argument. But the point is, we can no longer agree, even if it had been constitutional, which it probably wasn't in the first place. But even if we could say that what disparaging means, even if we could say that and prohibiting the registration of disparaging trademarks would be constitutional, we don't know what it means. One of the things that I see very frequently in these anti-Semitic Twitter attacks, people will respond by saying Jew. Just a reply, it's just Jew. That's supposed to be an insult. Jew. I'm not insulted by you calling me Jew, but of course you mean it as an insult.
Right.
Not you. No one watching this. I can't prohibit you from making me, and this is what Count Dacula said. He said in UK law that you can be arrested and imprisoned regardless of your intention and regardless of what a moron in a hurry would think, if some third person is offended by what you have written. Can you imagine that? It's crazy. How does that work?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It works against the benefit of society. And I think, where you draw the line, someone in the comments had said, your audience will draw the line for you. Your audience will tell you what's acceptable and what isn't. And I stand by that. The free market of ideas works. You have to let it work. I still stand by my argument earlier, though, based on our discussion last week. You can't also be throwing dung, what is ostensibly crap, all around the free market of ideas, and expect people to want to go to said free market and share their ideas. So there does need to be some sort of standard, but it needs to be built by the people who are utilizing the market and utilizing the space. The problem I think Twitter has with that idea is there are so many bots, so many foreign accounts. You had brought up the IRGC and Iran and their efforts to, create these somewhat bot accounts where they go on, they pretend to be people, and really they're just pressing and pushing propaganda and propaganda and propaganda. But the easy fix to that is to, without silencing the speech, is to push up speech that is not crap, to basically create an elevated platform to prioritize. And the risk with that is when you do it in a public forum, you have to be very, very careful, and you have to be very measured, and you have to have the least limiting type of policy you can make. It's a difficult tightrope to balance and to walk, but it's not as though we can't walk that tightrope. What I think is absurd is this idea that the government will institute the rules and tell you what is acceptable and what is unacceptable, that they will cajole these private entities into forcing certain speech, certain levels of acceptability. Could you imagine post 9/11? Do you know why there weren't really that many jokes post 9/11? Because we had suffered a collective trauma, because people were still processing it. My generation makes memes about 9/11. makes conspiracies, makes jokes. 9/11 is the butt of many, many jokes in my generation because we didn't suffer the same trauma. But over time, right? Over time, people started to create jokes and and it was seen as being in bad taste, but it eventually became much more acceptable and people were able to process the trauma that they had gone through collectively. So if there is any limits, I think the limit needs to come from the bottom up. It needs to come naturally from people saying, I'm not interested in that. It's nice that you called me out for being a Jew. I'm aware I'm a Jew. But that doesn't pertain to the topic at hand. And I would like to discuss the topic at hand. Thank you.
Let's hear from Count Dankula.
I was held in prison. Because of the nature of it was classed as a hate crime. It wasn't a case of you get taken down, you get processed, you get released. I was held in jail. And then I went to court and was released on bail. Then I was told to come back for my court date. And the trial went on for about 2 years, so twice as long as Nuremberg. The maximum sentence that I could have got, what I was actually charged with was a breach of Section 127 of the Communications Act of 2003. And that was posting a grossly offensive image or video on social media. Now, what is grossly offensive? It's a completely subjective metric.
You know what? I'd sign off on grossly offensive. Almost anything you do with gas the Jews as the dialogue is grossly offensive.
It's grossly offensive.
Yeah.
Okay, but on the other hand, that's what to me, that says, okay, this guy's got a kind of sick sense of humor. I don't think I'm going to be a regular subscriber to his. I don't think I'm going to be subscriber number 9.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, they're making you very famous, though.
Yeah. Basically, when I was arrested and I was in all the papers.
So to be clear, when you say it was a 2-year trial, it wasn't every day for 2 years.
No, 8 trial dates, but they were all dotted like 3 or 4 months apart.
Here they're trying to restrict your influence by using you as an example of what a tasteless joke that treads on the third rail of tastelessness. Now you're a war criminal, but instead they have magnified your influence.
People have said to me, I don't like your humor, I don't like your comedy, the Nazi pug thing, I didn't like it, it wasn't for me, but you should never in a million years have been arrested for it. I'm not asking people to enjoy the joke, because enjoying a joke is not up to me, that's up to the person hearing the joke. I just don't want to be arrested for it and sent to prison.
I think he put it pretty well. But he's my friend. How's he my friend? Because he followed me one day. I said, wow, the famous Count Dankula. And they'll maybe even come on your show. You know what?
I love Count. I find some of his opinions and statements a little distasteful. They aren't my brand of comedy, but a lot of his series, his Mad Lad series, love that stuff. And I just received the best compliment I've ever received in my entire life. I think it's from Peter, and Peter first name. He says, I get the feeling Danny loves learning, like the phrase, some eat to live, others live to eat. Danny lives to learn, kind of a very rare and cool. So thank you.
That really is a tremendous criterion that you can apply. It tells you a lot about people, whether they're still learning or whether they've shut it down. And as Fletcher Boy points out, and this is a bad segue, because this goes actually back to our topic, though. Dave Chappelle sells out every venue he performs, and he is offensive. And he has said some offensive things about almost everyone. Mm-hmm. Kathy Griffin had to stop her tour due to low attendance, even though she makes all the right comments, but she's not someone who has ever really been funny at all.
Because she makes all the right comments. That's what it is. Essentially, to be funny is to laugh is to risk being offended. That's the whole concept, right? Who was it that said that?
Someone really offensive, probably.
The Canadian professor, he now has his own thing. Anyway, he was in an interview and she said, well, what gives you the right to offend me, or what gives you the right to say certain things in public that are offensive? And he says, Jordan Peterson, thank you. And Jordan Peterson says in response to her, to converse, to talk, to share ideas is to risk being offensive and to risk being offended. And it comes down to that is we need to be more risk tolerant, and we need to be more tolerant of being offended, of being upset. And it comes down to taking personal accountability and responsibility for ourselves, saying, you know what? I find this not funny, but I'm sure some people do, and for whatever reason. But I am not going to allow this to upset me, to veer me off course, to change my mind, to make me think that the world's a horrible place.
Or to make me run to the government, to mommy, to hide behind its skirts. And as Allegan points out once again with another generous super chat, the government is going to do it if we let government operate outside of our participation. Only solution is to run for office like Danny did, join committees. That's what the left has done. We allow them to overrun us. How else does a shit stain like Gavin Newsom become governor of the biggest and richest state in the country? But look at our political class. They're just absolute. They're garbage. And one of the things that people like about Donald Trump is that he is not very politic. He is not a politician. Peter. Kidding. He is such the kidder. I will point out that we've got 10 minutes to go for people who want to be heard and to pay for the privilege. So I hope you'll consider that opportunity. That was yes. But we started out with execution. And now we're talking about laughter. Actually, we didn't start with execution. Was that the first story or the second story?
That was the first story.
That was the first legal story. No. Yes, it was the death penalty. The death penalty. Because you know what comedians say when they do very well in a routine, right?
No, what did they say?
I killed him out there. I killed him. So there's something about comedy and aggression, which is well known, especially among the funnier races. You hear what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
You don't need to preach to me, Ron. The Producers, I think, is the best comedy of all time. I love the older version. I love the new version. The Producers is by far my favorite comedy. Springtime for Hitler kills me every time. The absurdity of it, everything. It is so offensive. It's so grossly offensive.
And he could, so many of the things that Mel Brooks did could absolutely not be done in Hollywood today. And K1, of course, is playing with us. We had the Oxford comma. We had one of our best reels came out of the Oxford comma debate that we had, and Danny and I have agreed to disagree on that. We can still be friends. And that's why, DS, it's still a pleasure to listen to us, because Danny and I have been able to repress our seething hatred for each other over the Oxford comma issue. And it's been very, very very pleasurable to have you joining us here tonight as well, DS. So the comedy, I killed out there, slayed them. They say this kind of stuff all the time. Yeah, Springtime for Hitler. I mean, Mel Brooks, he didn't really. I mean, he's still alive, but I don't think he's doing that much work anymore. he had a tendency to go back to the well over and over, to the same gags over and over again. I remember in let's see if I can find it. We have a couple minutes.
All of it is great. It's hilarious. The man with the pigeons, the carrier pigeons, and the keep it happy, keep it snappy, keep it gay. It does very well as a musical. It is so good. The sexism, the rampant sexism, the rampant, all of it. What I like about Mel Brooks, and I really truly appreciate this about good comedians, is when they are equal opportunity offenders.
Yeah, that's right.
They respect no one and they go after everyone equally. Those are the best. Those are by far the best.
I do get you, DS. I do. This was the one that I thought went a little bit over the line, but the fact is, I can't stop myself from humming it. Many, many years later, here we go. Right, but I'm getting it right off YouTube.
I think it's they don't care. Have you taken a look at their policies?
No, I'm familiar with this.
Listen, I'll let you fight it. Whatever you send to YouTube, please copy and paste over into my chat I can also send it.
It was absolutely worth it. And now it is 11:02. And gang, thanks for a lovely evening. Danny, always a pleasure. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Good night. Hey, Torquemada, what do you say?
It's still showing live on my side.
Yeah, no, that's because I didn't do it right. Stay and end the stream. End stream. Thank you.